This is our community's house. We are all guests in it here to serve our community. My name is Mike Little, Mayor for the District of North Vancouver, and so the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here to our regular meeting of Council for Monday, May 27th at 7 o'clock. Council, I'd like to start the meeting off in a good way, and I've asked Councillor Back if you could read our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Your Worship. We respectfully acknowledge the original peoples of these lands and waters, specifically the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam, on whose unceded ancestral lands the District of North Vancouver is located. We value the opportunity to learn, share, and serve our community on these unceded lands.
Thank you very much, Councillor Back. We have an agenda that's been circulated in the packet. Any errors or omissions from the agenda is presented. Hearing none, will someone move its adoption? Moved by Councillor Forbes, second by Councillor Back. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carries. Council, there are a couple of sets of meeting minutes that have been circulated in the package. This is for the April 8th regular meeting of Council and the April 22nd regular meeting of Council. Are there any errors or omissions from those meeting minutes as presented? Hearing none, will someone move their adoption, please? Moved by Councillor Moss, second by Councillor Back. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried. We have a period of up to 30 minutes at the front end of any regular meeting of Council for items of interest to members of the public. The clerk's office opens up the speaking list, and we do already have 8 people that have signed up to speak today, but assuming they all stick to the time limit, if anybody else would like to add their name to the list, I'll come around and check at the end of the list. The first speaker I have is Leanne Mack, followed by John Miller. Is Leanne Mack joining us here? Welcome. Come on down to the desk here and we'll get you set up. And just as we're getting set up for that, council meetings are conducted in a hybrid fashion. So that means that all members of the council, the public, and the staff can participate in person or virtually. And so Councillor Murray is participating virtually this evening. So in that, we have all members of council present for this evening's meeting. And so over to you. Thank you. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council meeting.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little, and thank you to the council for having me here today. My name is Leanne Mack, and I'm here representing the Canadian Mental Health Association, North and West Vancouver branch, and I'm here to speak in support of Councillor Pope's motion. About the CMHA, we're an organization that provides programs and services that support mental health for all. Among those programs and services include our counseling, housing, outreach, social supports, and many more. Within our housing portfolio, we have 5 houses. 3 of those are licensed group homes, and 2 of those are temporary supportive housing for individuals experiencing mental health and substance use issues, as well as those who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Within our outreach services, approximately 80% of the clients that we served are facing housing-related issues. And among those folks, many are what we would call the hidden homeless. So those are not the sort of individuals that you would see in a homeless count. Those are individuals who would be living in their cars, those who are couch surfing, or maybe what we would call precariously housed. Among that population, a vast majority of those individuals are people facing other barriers. They are the most vulnerable in our society. They are seniors, they are single parents, they're people with physical disabilities and brain injuries. I'll tell you a story about 2 clients that we've served. One of them is a gentleman I'll call Adam. Adam was faced with a brain injury, found himself turning to substances, losing his housing situation, and in order to get supportive, stable housing, we had to send him to Kamloops, where he had no ties to community. Another client, we'll call him Brian, repeated the same cycle with our outreach worker team every year, into rehab, out into a precarious housing situation, living with individuals who are also using, and back into rehab, unable to afford supportive housing or market housing, even with a rental subsidy. The Canadian Mental Health Association recognizes that mental health and substance use is rooted in income inequality and homelessness, and there are a range of supporters here on the North Shore willing to work with the district on such an initiative to provide wraparound supports to ensure those individuals can access mental health and substance use supports, counseling, anything to focus on their recovery, to access employment supports, to become prosperous and contributing community members here in the District of North Vancouver. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Leanne Mack. The next speaker I have is John Miller, followed by Joy Hayden. John Miller is joining us virtually. John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you clearly. Welcome. When you're ready, you have 3 minutes to address the council meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Little and councillors. It's good to be here today. My name is Dr. John Miller. I'm a retired public health physician, formerly the provincial health officer. I'm a West Van resident and a member of the North Shore Homelessness Task Force and CHAC. I too am speaking in favor of Councillor Pope's motion that staff prepare a report on the solution to homelessness crisis on the North Shore. And I'll just make the following points. Adequate housing is a human right. Homelessness is a problem all across the North Shore, across Metro Vancouver, across Canada, across the North America, and across Europe. So we're not alone, and there's much known. And a lot has been learned already about how to address this problem. The causes are related to population growth, lack of compassion and resistance to change, NIMBYism, zoning laws, insufficient construction of affordable housing, lack of government initiatives, and as the previous speaker mentioned, a wide gap between the rich and the poor, growing prevalence of mental illness and addiction, persistent poverty, and a neoliberal free market economy. There's some principles that have emerged that I'd urge you to bear in mind when developing a plan. The first principle is that of housing first. This is a principle that's been well tested and proven to work. For people to recover from trauma, mental illness, and addiction, stable, secure housing is necessary. So homes must be built with wraparound mental health and addiction services and life skills services available 24 hours, as the previous speaker was mentioning. Finland has implemented this over the past 30 years and reduced homelessness by 82%. And 90% of the people served in that way have stayed in their homes. And it has saved the government about $13,000 per client per year. So it's a good business case to do this. And another principle is that there is not a market solution to this, or government action is needed. The federal government is already stepping up with a national housing plan. They're promising 3.5 million social housing units by 2030, and they're making billions of dollars available. And all the municipalities on the North Shore should be able to access this. BC has BC Building, and again, zoning changes have been facilitated and dollars are available. So North Shore municipalities now need to build up more nonprofit, affordable social housing with 24-hour wraparound services available. These may be modules, tiny homes, 3D printed containers, apartments, purpose-built centers, whatever seems to be appropriate and doable. My congratulations to District North Van in getting through the East Keith Road development. And I'd let you know that West Van too is developing a housing homelessness plan. And we stand ready to help you out in any way that we can as you develop yours. Thank you very much for tonight.
Thank you for your comments, John Miller. The next speaker I have is Joy Hayden, followed by Don Peters. I believe.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. I'm speaking tonight in favor of Councillor Pope's recommendations for the district to respond to the crisis of North Vancouver residents facing imminent homelessness. Through my work at Hollyburn Community Services Society, in my volunteer capacity on CHAC and other organizations, we see a lot of the individuals that both John and Leanne spoke to. We also see hardworking families facing homelessness, young people, seniors, and individuals of all ages, ethnicities, and income status. I've said time and time again, if you are a renter in today's economic climate, you are at risk of homelessness. And just like the diversity of the people across the North Shore and beyond who face homelessness, so are the housing models required to address this crisis. One housing model does not fit everyone. There's a small majority of people who, in all honesty, will never be successful living in an affordable housing building. This does not mean they should not be housed. It means that as a community, we need to be creative with the types of housing we can offer. I had the distinct honor of being involved developing a tiny village set up in the Cowichan Valley for homeless individuals who would not be successful in traditional housing. This began as a way to create social isolation through COVID-19, but the concept grew and continues to offer secure housing for these individuals. 8 by 10-foot tiny homes were built. They had a lock, electricity, window, and a heater. The community service providers offered on-site healthcare, meals, counseling, and services. There were communal gathering spaces, showers, and washrooms, and has formed a model for other communities across North America. This vision was a result of a group of citizens, mayors, councillors, service providers, and people with lived experience who collectively created an affordable and sustainable vision to address immediate homelessness in that community. Councillor Pope's recommendations are challenging. They too will require a creative and open-minded approach. Should Mayor and Council choose to form a process, I would love to volunteer to be part of that process. I want to be part of the solution, creating a model where every single person has a home that is suitable to their immediate and future needs. Thank you for listening and the opportunity to share my thoughts. Good night.
Thank you for your comments, Joy Hayden. Next, I have Don Peters, followed by Kevin Evans, and Don is joining us over the phone. Can you hear me, Don?
I can, Your Worship. Can you hear me?
Clearly. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, sir. And I want to commend the first three speakers, all of whom I know and respect their great work on behalf of homelessness. My name is Don Peters, and I'm a longtime resident in the District of North Van and retired member of the Community Housing Action Committee. First, I congratulate Councillor Pope for bringing this motion tonight as the homelessness situation continues to worsen across Canada and here on the North Shore, as we all know. As experts continue to show, across Canada and internationally, homelessness and insecure housing has a devastating impact on the health of people who directly experience it, including early death. And as we have long known, homelessness incurs staggering public health costs, increased law enforcement services, not to mention the sad wreckage of families. Homeless people are exposed to communicable diseases. They are often unable to maintain a healthy social network and are vulnerable to a higher level of physical and sexual violence, and are often trapped in inadequate social programs. Many are caught in a downward cycle of despair and sleep deprivation, chronic depression, serious mental health, and drug use concerns. Homeless people are more likely to have hepatitis C, more likely to have epilepsy, to have heart disease, to have cancer, asthma, arthritis, and rheumatism. Now, Councillor Pope's motion is a fulsome direction to staff to collaborate with local, provincial, and federal entities to determine where funding may lie, where partnerships might be energized, where federal properties may be accessed, and to determine how permits and other development issues may be expedited. Her conclusion is stark and, in my view, correct. We owe it to our community and to ourselves to get on this right now. Thank you, Your Worship, and good night.
Thank you for your comments, Don Peters. Next, I have joining us here in person, Kevin Evans, followed by Zach Caspe. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and councillors. It's great to see you all. It just was about a month ago that I was here representing Hollyburn Community Services Society along with Joy Miller. I'm the vice chair. I'm the community volunteer. We were here to thank you for your involvement in a long-standing project that we've been partners in just down the street. It's a building that's going to provide 85 units of low rental housing, and it is very, very much needed. And so I don't have to talk to you about the plight of the homeless. We know you get it. However, you also get the fact that that project has taken 4 years and is still not built. It'll be built soon, but 4 years. I think we all understand that when we're facing a human crisis in our own community, that's just not good enough. And I want to congratulate you for the work that's going on here with your administrative staff to try and find ways to streamline those processes so it doesn't take another 4 years for those projects, because we know there are people who are caught in that period. who are still couch surfing, who are sleeping in the bush not far from where we are right tonight, and are people who are waking up every morning and the first thought in their mind is, am I going to have a place to sleep tonight? So I think Councillor Pope's motion, and I hope it's soon going to be your movement, zeroes in on the missing piece in the district strategy. While you're moving forward with the kind of housing we're providing over at Delbrook, there also needs to be a parallel movement that is providing the short-term transitional housing that other communities have shown can work. It's not easy. The chair of our housing committee at Hollyburn is a vice president at the British Pacific Properties. They were responsible for putting a Cypress pop-up pizza place up on Cypress. It's modular. It exhibits the kind of technology that's being used, but their experience also showed how complex this is and how we cannot underestimate the challenges that are going to be put up if, in fact, the district chooses to embark upon this path. The lesson there is that it's going to take an entire community, all of civil society in the District of North Vancouver, to make this transitional gap be filled, but it can happen. And hopefully tonight is going to start everyone rowing in the same direction to make this happen so that we can truly feel that we have got a comprehensive approach to homelessness in this community and are working hard in a committed fashion to fill this gap of transitional housing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Kevin Evans. Next, I have Zach Caspe, followed by Eric Anderson. Oh. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Mayor Little and councillors. I'm speaking on behalf of Councillor Pope's motion. My name is Zach Caspe. I'm a grade 12 student at a private school called Vancouver College, a valedictorian candidate for my grade, president and founder of my school's beekeeping club, and a future UBC student about to study political science in a couple of months. What most don't know about me is that just under a year ago, police came to my house and removed me from my home. After finally I had the courage to speak out about the abuse that I would undergo from my parents. At 16, I had to face the decision between living under a stable roof or being safe. Luckily for me, I ended up at the North Shore Youth Safe House, where I was supported and uplifted by staff. The North Shore Youth Safe House is the only house dedicated to providing youth a safe space in the North Shore. The safe house can only take 4 youth at a time, 2 male and 2 female. That's only 4 kids saved from being exposed to unsafe substances, hostile environments, and even more unsafe group homes. As a youth, I think it's unfair that we have to choose between safety and security or stable housing. The Zach Caspe talking to you now is only who he is because he called faster than 3 youth before him. What if I wasn't quick enough? Where would I be now? Honestly, that thought terrifies me. But for many, it's a reality. I don't have to look far to see just how much homelessness has impacted our neighborhoods, and not even further to look at our homeless population and think that that could have been me. Councillor Pope's motion gives me hope that even though there will be more youth like me in the future, that the community is finally listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments, Zach Caspe. The next speaker I have is Eric Anderson, followed by Hazen Colbert. Eric, welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Little and members of council. My name is Eric Anderson and I live at 2589 Derbyshire Way. Tonight's going to be the shortest presentation I have ever made because I'm only here to introduce the 2 star volunteers that we have on the Blue Ridge Good Neighbor Day planning team, starting with Ina Meller and also Amira Nazar, who is sitting behind me. So I'll let them speak and explain what we're doing.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hello, and thank you very much for having us. My name is Ina, and I'm this year's chair on the Blue Ridge Good Neighbor Day committee. I'm originally from Germany and moved to Vancouver in 2011. After having my first child, we moved to Blue Ridge in 2015, and I quickly realized that this community is very engaged and active. A lot of people really want to know their neighbors and connect. The first time I visited Blue Ridge Good Neighbor Day was in 2017, and I was so impressed by all the free activities on offer. Kids' activities like bouncy castles, face painting, and crafts. I also enjoyed all the local businesses and organizations that have tables to present and promote themselves and really give you a sense of who and what is available right at your doorstep. This year, alongside the classics, silent auction, beer garden, food trucks and concessions, cakewalk, and a pie eating contest, we are also offering some newer additions like pickleball, skateboarding, a chess tournament, and a mini petting zoo. Live music will be provided by our local teenage band, The Drink Tickets, who are opening for the main act, Wishbone. Blue Ridge Good Neighbor Day offers so much for every generation, much like its small but mighty planning committee, which is a group of local volunteers of all ages. So we are very proud to invite you all to our event that will take place on Saturday, June 15th, which kicks off with a short parade around 10:30 a.m. from Hyannis and Berkeley in Blue Ridge down to the Blue Ridge Elementary School at the end of the cul-de-sac on Bronte Drive. And it all ends around 3 p.m. So we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elmira, and I am co-chair of Blue Ridge Good Neighbor Day this year. And I just wanted to follow up on what Eric and Ina have said. Want to invite the council to attend the event this year. I've been living in Blue Ridge since 2018. And I got involved with the Blue Ridge Community Association as the volunteer coordinator. And I want to emphasize on how many great volunteers we have in our community, and people really want to get involved. And we have a lot of sponsors. That is the way that we're paying for the event. It is mostly free. So if there's any businesses or anyone that is willing to donate or sponsor the event, and we're always looking for more volunteers if anyone's interested in helping out. Again, it's Saturday, June 15th from 11 to 3 p.m. at Blue Ridge Elementary. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and we have newsletters for you all.
Very much. It's a great event. Okay, next I have joining us virtually, Hazen Colbert. Just before we start, Mr. Colbert, I just wanted to mention something. So at our April 8th meeting of council, sorry, just want to verify. Can you hear me, Hazen?
Mayor Little, can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly. I just wanted to say before you have your opportunity to speak, Hazen, at our a meeting of April 8th, you decided to start with some public comments that I thought went over the line and represented professing some violence against another person. And so we stopped your feedback at that time. And so I just want to remind you that we want the benefit of your comments without the invective, but the council is going to be considering bringing in policies to make sure that we're managing that relationship between providing members of the public an opportunity to have unfettered access to speak to their government, but at the same time, respecting that we have an obligation to make sure that our staff can work in a bullying-free and harassment-free environment. And so I did just want to say before you speak tonight that that we want the benefit of your comments without the added invective. But you will now be given up to 3 minutes to speak to the council.
Thank you, Mayor Little, and I won't comment on your comments, as I think you well know why. I do want to start by saying something that I didn't plan to say tonight. I heard what Zach said, and I know it so very well. What he said is extraordinarily accurate, and I've seen it in my life so many times that it hobbles me. And even today, at the age of 62, it still brings me to tears, and it did tonight when I heard Zach. I'm now going to go on to speak. Through the chair, I say that Councillor Forbes, Ma, Murray, Pope, and Back, and Mayor Little are good and honest people. I asked those names, to look at the minutes from April the 8th, specifically the summary of public input through my lens. Is the use of legislative process, specifically the creation and approval of council meeting minutes, the appropriate occasion to gaslight, impugn, and prime a resident of the municipality simply because some people on council, but not all, do not support my view that $4 billion for a wastewater facility is irresponsible and $20,000 for a plane ticket when I and others have documented that a $5,299 alternative was available, was wrong. I have no knowledge of any obscene and violent language as alleged or at all, and I certainly do not recall hearing such language in these chambers in person as alleged or at any time. Please let's go forward as a team, and please let's work together to cancel the proposed North Shore wastewater treatment plant on Pemberton today in favor of renovating and expanding the Lionsgate wastewater treatment plant at 1/10 the cost of building a new facility. Let's also support the immediate election, and I mean an election this week before Friday, of Councillor Murray or Mayor Little as Metro Chair to replace the incumbent who is mired in ongoing controversy. The details are so absurd I decline to address. We have pressing legitimate matters to manage, like aggressive building of affordable housing units, as people tonight have said. We have the new Patello Bridge and Broadway SkyTrain, which we learned last week are both delayed another year, and that their expected costs remain undisclosed. Never mind, we need to get a head start on the new George Massey Tunnel so that it gets finished sooner, like in 2028, rather than later. And that a primary local matter is that we absolutely put shovels in the ground on the SkyTrain and new bridge to the North Shore before this is out. With respect to my request that we nominate Lisa Murray or Mike Little as the new chair for Metro, I close by saying, think big, vote little.
Thank you for your comments here this evening, Hazen Colbert. Okay, we have gone through the speakers list with additional time to spare. Would anybody else like to add their name to the speakers list at this time? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I see no further hands virtually or here in person, and so we're going to carry on with this evening's agenda at this time. We do have the next item in our agenda is a delegation from the North Shore Safety Council. So I'm going to call on them to come up and get ready and take the spots here up at the front. I did just want to say again, for the benefit of the public, a delegation is slightly different than public input. It's an opportunity we create for organizations within their community to come and do a little bit of a deeper dive on specific issues facing our community. It's an opportunity for them to speak for 5 minutes, followed by a Q&A period at the end where council can ask clarifying questions of their organization, and then we'll proceed to receipt of their delegation at that time. And so at this time, I would like to welcome Tom Walker from the North Shore Safety Council, and you have 5 minutes to address the council. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council, and thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on the activities of the North Shore Safety Council. I'm joined this evening by fellow board member Calvira Mann, who is seated behind me. The North Shore Safety Council is a member of the Canada Safety Council, which is home to Elmer the Safety Elephant, who you see on the screen before you. We were formed in 1952, incorporated as a society in BC in 1954, in fact, in June 1954. So next month marks our 70th anniversary. So Elmer has resided in the district of North Vancouver just a little bit longer than I have. Our purpose remains as it always has, to make our community safer for residents in whatever activity they choose to engage in. Our mission, however, has expanded in recent years. We still encourage safe behavior, of course, mostly through educational programs targeted to children. But as reflected in our motto, fostering a safe and active community, we believe that health, particularly through physical activity, is an important component in injury reduction and prevention. Therefore, we encourage active transportation, especially through walking and cycling, even skateboarding. Our education and awareness goals focus on accessible, low or no cost programs delivered to children and by extension, their families through school classrooms and public programs. We believe that more people choosing active transportation will positively impact traffic volume and speeds, along with other measures to make our roads safer. We appreciate the funding from the District of North Vancouver, practically over all of our 70 years of existence. Currently, our Elmer the Safety Elephant programs are in a rebuilding phase following COVID. We're still coming out of COVID. We would normally see 2,500 kindergarten and grade 1 students in the District of North Vancouver once or twice a year. We're very proud of our newest program called Be Bright, Be Seen. It's a no-cost resource to teachers of grade 3 children. The program encourages being visible while actively traveling in low light conditions, including fog and dusk and rain, which we seem to have a lot of on the North Shore. It's been a careful process of development, and with the help of the District of North Vancouver, we have been able to begin rolling out the program. Our goal is to have long-term corporate support. Other ongoing programs have a heavy focus on schools where Elmer is well known. This morning we held a bike rodeo at Ross Road Elementary School. And this morning we also ran a safety blitz at Canyon Heights Elementary. Coming up, we will also be at Blue Ridge Good Neighbor Days. We'll also be at Lynn Valley, in the Lynn Valley Parade. Elmer will be making a presentation in the Lynn Valley Parade himself. Organizational planning, consultation, and collaboration takes place in nearly monthly meetings over Zoom, where we act as a hub for interested residents, agencies, municipal staff, where we can advise and plan to advocate. And one of the areas we advocate for is and to congratulate you on and to encourage you on is the eastern extension of the Spirit Trail. We're currently planning a public safety forum in the fall to coincide with a celebration event. In the past, we've run others, including helmet and concussion awareness, the dangers of bubble-wrapped children, and traffic speed on residential streets. We very much appreciate the cooperation of municipal staff and school district representatives, in particular, Brendan James and Dennis Bolio, who regularly attend meetings and provide a listening ear to issues that are raised by our membership. Once again, thank you for your support. I'm happy to field any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Tom, for your presentation. I was having a little bit of fun with the clerk this morning in our prep meeting, and I asked if Elmer was going to be here to speak, and she looked over the report and said, "No, I don't see an Elmer on here." And so, but as someone who grew up on the North Shore at school, Elmer the Safety Elephant was definitely a part of our elementary school and high school experience. And so, you know, it's an amazing legacy for 70 years, providing leadership and safety and preventing injury in our community. And so just want to affirm that that's an amazing legacy here for us as well. Will you be in the Elmer costume at Blue Ridge Good Neighbor
We got
Day?
the mascot on proviso that I would never get in it.
Yeah.
We
Well,
should vote on that,
whoever it
Mayor
is,
Little.
I hope the weather is perfect for that person because it is a heavy suit and so you don't want it to be too hot and it also would be pretty sensitive to the rain. So hopefully the weather cooperates and keeps that person safe as well. The first comment I have from council is from Councillor Henson.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for all the good work you do on safety in the North Shore. From time to time, we talk about speed limits at this council table, and there's discussion afoot to perhaps lower the speed limits across the district. And then from time to time, we also talk about speeding enforcement and trying to undertake strategies to actually lower the speeds that cars are driving within the existing speed limits. Do you have any comments with respect to the contribution that reducing speeding and speed limits could potentially have with respect to safety across the North
Indeed.
Shore?
Thank you. Through the chair, we in fact held a public forum in this room in 2017, and we called it Slow Down North Shore. That was the campaign. The purpose of that campaign was to specifically target residential streets. Not so much the highway, certainly, not even the collectors. But when people turn off the highway and turn off the collectors onto the arterials and into the neighborhoods, continuing the same speeds they've had because they're late, we want people to just slow down. To that end, we started a survey that said, what stories do you have about speeding in front of your home? We regrettably couldn't keep that survey going for long, but we did get responses from everybody has a story about cars that are going too fast and trucks and delivery vans that are going too fast in front of their homes, much less on the way to get someplace. So we're very concerned, particularly as the North Shore Safety Council, about residential streets so that children can walk from their front door to the park, to their school. So we're starting small by starting at home and thinking that reduced speed limits on residential streets is a good idea. It's not the only idea, but it's a good idea. So Edgewater Village is a good example.
Thank you. Next, I have Councillors Back and Ma. Councillor Back, your comments, please.
Thank you very much, Tom. Great to meet you this evening. Thank you to Elmer, of course, for all the years of service, but particularly you and Colvier. I know you put a lot of time into this organization. So just want to express my appreciation. For me, road safety for people, for pedestrians and for people that are on bikes is a real area of focus for me. And I wonder if you've noticed like the issues change over the years, given that, you know, the organization's been around so long. I'm just wondering if you could comment on kind of the types of issues that maybe you're seeing in recent years that weren't such a problem in the past.
No, only increased.
Just more of it.
Just more of it,
Yeah.
more traffic, faster people that are more late for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And in more of a hurry, particularly, of course, and I don't know, we can thank a past Minister of Education, I think, for allowing school choice to allow people to choose schools outside of the catchment area, which I think was a mistake. But what happened outside of French immersion schools, which of course brings kids from outside of catchment, is that people are now driving their kids to school. So even where we see that happening, and that is a huge increase, what we're trying to promote is Drive to 5. So if you do have your child going to a school that's outside of your catchment area, just drive to within 5-minute walk, park, walk in. So that's a huge increase. And that happens, as you know, every day from 8:45 to 9:15 to 2:45 to 3:15. It's virtually impossible to get around anywhere on the North Shore.
Yeah, I've certainly experienced that myself regularly. I think school drop-off and pickup areas are some of the most dangerous areas. I mean, we see some of the worst driver behavior of anywhere. And I know Councillor Ma and myself have talked to some of the parents as well. And one of the schools, so Yeah, thank you for the work you do. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Next speaker I have is Councillor Ma.
That's the challenge of going third after Councillor Hanson and Councillor Back. They've said most of the things I want to say, but
What they said, that's okay.
I will. First of all, thank you for your presentation, Tom. I'm very glad to hear that Colvert's on the board. I know her in her capacity on the North Van Board of Education. As Councillor Back mentioned, in the past year, myself, Councillor Back, and Mayor Little have been out to many of the schools during the safety blitz put on by ICBC, but with involvement from the PAC, which I think is critical, RCMP, the DME staff, and other concerned groups. When I talk to people, you know, public education, enforcement, signage, and road design are part of the solution. The safety blitz seemed to only last for a couple of weeks. We are trying to encourage people to find alternate ways to get to school, like riding their bikes. If that picks up, how do we make sure that they're safe besides just walking? What other things do you think we need to consider?
One of the things we want to consider is just most kids want to walk or ride their bikes to school, but they're not allowed to because the parents are afraid. Yes, they're afraid. The children want to, but they can't because their parents are afraid. What we're hoping to do is with Be Bright, Be Seen, for example, is to equip children with the means to and the knowledge to take this material home to their parents, to their caregivers, and say, look, this, I'm ready for this. Trust me to walk to school or to drive to 5 to walk or ride or scooter the rest of the way. How did we get seatbelt legislation through? How did we change our habits? The children said, Daddy, aren't you going to buckle up? It's the law. It didn't matter that it was the law, but the children in the back seat, Daddy, aren't you going to buckle up? So we want the children, and that's why we focus on the kids.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, you know, I've been trying to participate in the surprise safety blitzes that we have with I partnered with ICBC at our elementary schools. Some of it is a planning exercise, see if there's different ways we can approach and make the routes to school safer. But the other thing is just simply an observation that we have a bit of a culture problem where parents, and we've all been there, our kids, we probably dropped them off more than we needed to, considering it's only about a 3-block walk to the school. But you know, when you're on your way out, you do that. But our kids did mostly walk. But you see the parents, if they could, they drive down the front hallway of the school to drop their kid off at the classroom. Even with uniformed police officers and signs all over the place at the drop-off area, they're still ignoring the regulations that are in place. And we don't want to have to enforce harshly at the schools, but it's getting to a point where people are such poor judges of risk around kids that we're going to have to take more serious actions around those spaces. And so it is a frustration, but unfortunately, it happens away from school properties as well. So it's a broader culture and community problem where people are frustrated if there's any delay. I would add to Councillor Back's comment, you know, one thing that I have noticed that is different and more emergent lately is distraction on devices. And so lots of the problems are longstanding issues, but I see people fully hearing the chirp from the pedestrian activated app system that we have and not even looking up, just using the chirp to keep looking at their phone as they walk out in front of traffic and cross the street. And that is so risky. And I don't know how we can address that. You have to give the attention to the risks around you, and broader than just at the school properties, but throughout the community as well, and throughout all ages. But I did just want to say, I really appreciate what you guys are doing with kids. Do you have any recommendations for how we can be better addressing adults that are not, that are also just wandering out into traffic, fully distracted?
Sergeant Bolio has told us that the RCMP have started ticketing at schools. It wasn't many years ago that they weren't. They were present occasionally. They've also increased their presence at schools dramatically in this last school year, which has been very good. But they have started actually issuing tickets. That's just an enforcement issue that they weren't prepared to do. It was more, I don't know, public relations. A few years ago, they wanted to be nice guys. They're put that away now. So that's one thing. Engineering might help with bump outs, shorten the crosswalks. You know, those are solutions too. Enticement, you know, we're trying to find ways to encourage, you know, adults to do that. As you know, at the safety blitz, the children go up to the driver with a postcard that they've made about how they're being responsible in the drive-through is affecting that child. That's enticement to me. And I don't know how else, you know, to do that. But those are some of the things that are being done now and will need to be increased. How do we teach civility so that people don't cross straddling a crosswalk in front of a school? That I don't know.
Well, thank you very much for your comments here today. And again, the incredible legacy that you have in this community. Councillor Hanson, you were the first question. Would you like to move receipt of the delegation?
Yes, please.
Seconder, Councillor Back. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. On behalf of the council, thank you very much for what you do in our community.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right, council. Carrying on with this evening's agenda and reports. Next up, we have item 8.1. This is bylaws 8672 and 8673, OCP amendment and rezoning for 108 townhouse development at 1915 to 1987 Glenaire Drive and 1974 to 1990 Belle Place. We do have some opening remarks from staff.
Your Worship, I'm going to pass the floor to Ms. Yan Zhang, Manager of Development Planning, and Ms. Frankie McAdam, a planner who's prepared the report for you tonight. I just thought I'd make one note. Council is aware that the province through Bill 44 has made amendments to the need for public hearings, and public hearings are prohibited as a general rule for residential development. However, tonight is an exception. If there's an official community plan amendment with the bylaw, then a public hearing, if council passes first reading, a public hearing must be held. So the staff are here simply tonight to provide very preliminary introductory comments and to seek council's direction with respect to moving the application forward. Thank you.
Thanks for that clarity. Yan Zhang.
Thank you. Your Worship and members of council, I would like to give a brief overview of this application. So tonight before you is the introduction of a rezoning bylaw and OCP amendment bylaw for 108 unit townhouse project. The site, if I can get the next slide, please. Is located in the peripheral housing area of the Lionsgate Village Center, directly north of Belle Park and about 200-meter walking distance to the community center. The site is considered to be one of the last few to be developed at the peripheral of the village center, and the proposal is very similar in scale and nature to surrounding developments such as the Mason, Belle, Holland Row, Ebb and Flow. Next, please. So the proposal includes 108 strata units in stacked townhouse format in a total of 10 buildings on site. There are a variety of unit types, including 1, 2, 3-bedroom units. And there are also 10 3-bedroom units containing lock-off suites, further adding flexibility in the housing stock offered on site. The project is designed to a step 4 of the step code with a low emission level 3, which provides a high level of energy efficiency and reduced operational carbon. In terms of public benefits, the application will dedicate a significant amount of land to the district as road, particularly as shown on this slide in the red outline, a dedication along the southern boundary of the site to provide for the widening of the Belle Place for sidewalk, and a new road connection to connect the Belle Place to Glenaire Drive. The application also includes a number of off-site improvements, including new sidewalks, lighting, boulevard planting, paving improvements, and utility servicing upgrade, estimated as approximately $1.45 million. The applicant has also offered a community amenity contribution of just over $1.9 million. In terms of tenant relocation, there are 3 existing tenants eligible for tenant relocation assistance under the district policy. Staff have reviewed the applicant's relocation plan and then have been informed of all the communications between the applicant and the tenants and found the plans consistent with district policy. Mayor and council staff have assessed the proposed density, height, urban design, livability, housing mix, as well as parking, and consider the proposal supportable and in alignment with the council adopted policies and guidelines. If approved, it would introduce diverse and missing middle housing in the neighborhood. The 2 bylaws are recommended for first reading and referral to public hearing so that council would be able to hear from the public on this proposal. This concludes staff introduction.
Let me just clarify. So in the report, it talks about being able to transfer density between sites. It's not something we normally see. So I'm wondering if you can give some additional comments on that piece.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Frankie, could you please pull up the density transfer slide? It's shown in the report. So when the adjacent development ebb and flow was approved in 2018, I believe, there was a wider dedication for pedestrian connection to the Capilano River as a result of that dedication. So it's I would say it's on page 51 of your council package. So as a result of that setback, there is a density reduction for that ebb and flow site and for about 4 to 6 units. And so council at the time made a resolution that in the future, when this subject site is up for redevelopment, council has this option to consider the additional density transfer from that site. So
to be clear then, so because there was a larger public transfer in the first project, ebb and flow, to make the developer whole on that transaction, it was recommended at the time that we consider a density transfer as a part of this transaction. Is that fair?
That's fair, yeah, because the applicant owns both sites.
Okay, thank you. It's just not a mechanism we don't frequently see, so I just wanted to highlight that. I've got Councillors Ma and Back. Councillor Ma, will you be moving your motion?
Yes, I will move staff's recommendation.
Recommendation. Councillor Back, will you be seconding? Yes, thank you. Councillor Ma, your comments, please.
Yeah, first, I just want to ask a couple of questions, and I sent these to staff in advance, but I'll just read them out. The first couple has to deal with the parking ratios. What has been the parking ratio for other Line Gate Village developments? How does the proposed 1.68 ratio compare to some of the other developments, such as the one in Lynn Creek Town Center? And just talking about the density transfer, what are some of the potential uses? Like how would the additional, almost 6,000 square feet be used on the new site? And then finally, I was looking at all the other developments in the area. I just want to get a sense of the purpose-built rentals that are already in the Line Gate Village Center. Just if you can give us an idea of how many rental units are already there and whether any pending proposals or rentals. The only one that comes to mind is partly Shard. So if you can, Frankie, if you can answer those questions, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide the answer, and thank you in advance for asking those questions. So I'm going to ask the last question, answer the last question first, which is what is this breakdown between purpose-built rental versus strata in the Lionsgate Village? And what's shown on the screen here, and we also have the printout. I understand that is a little bit difficult. The font's a little bit difficult. So we have, this is in May 2024 data to date. We have about 900 in total. It's the third, 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth same market housing ownership. In total, we have about approved being 488, occupied being 488, and approved 263, and then in-stream 211, which includes this subject application. So that's about 962 in total in the village center. And then the third row is market housing rental. Occupied 460, approved 77, in-stream 385. So we do have a big rental housing proposal under staff review right now. So that is about 922 units. So we're basically looking at a 50-50 between strata versus rental in the village center. I'm gonna move on to the parking ratio. So
If we can get this after, that'd be great.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I understand that it's not difficult. Yes. So the parking ratio overall is 1.68, and this is considered very consistent with all the surrounding developments, the townhouse developments. In fact, it's slightly below that of the surrounding townhouse developments. In terms of, in comparison of this ratio with some of the multifamily development in the Lynn Creek Town Center, this is the Lynn Creek Town Center parking ratio would be lower than 1.68. And that is because the Lynn Creek Town Center development are really adjacent to Phipps Exchange, but also those are either 6-story and up, and some of them are actually tower development. They're not townhomes. So I would say that the proposed ratio is very typical of this kind of development and strata owned. So the question, the last question is, what is the potential use of the transfer density? So the density transfer of 5,850 square feet is included in the total proposed density in front of you tonight of the subject rezoning application. And based on their housing units, the unit types, this is about to be able to accommodate approximately 4 to 6 units on the sites. And staff are deemed this is supportable because the site is pretty big. There is no other potential use.
I just want to,
can
could I just clarify that?
Yeah.
The additional density is baked in already, or, sorry,
That's correct.
But-
Yeah.
that's still a decision before council though.
Yes, so one of the options could be, like council do have options to look at this and make a decision in terms of whether to go with staff recommendation or making alternative recommendation or defer the application back to staff to work with the applicant.
Okay. Give some more thoughts after on my next turn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I've got Councillors Back, Hanson, Murray, and Forbes. Councillor Back, your comments, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Little. I will be supporting the staff recommendation for this particular project. It is a very large site that is one of the last to be developed in this part of Lionsgate Village, taking 10 single-family lots and turning them into 108 townhomes. And I think this is a form of housing that, you know, sort of ground-oriented townhouse, which we need in the district. It's we haven't approved a lot of townhouses over in the last recent years, and so I think this housing form is certainly appropriate in this part of the community. Interesting to note that there has been a lot of rental that has been approved in Lionsgate Village, which is great to see because we know we need rental, which this development isn't. But I think particularly with the addition of the 10 lock-off suites, that does provide more opportunity for people to potentially own one of these units, which they may not be able to do without that having that lock-off suite. So I think just given that this particular development is so close to the R2 rapid bus, just over half a kilometer, I think the reduction in parking is very supportable. I was glad to see that. I also do support the density transfer from the ebb and flow site because I know that this public walkway has provided a really nice connection to Capilano River and to the park. And on the topic of park, I know there is excitement down in that area in Lionsgate Village of the new Belle Park, which will be opened hopefully later this year or very early next year. And this development will be right across the street. So I think it's a really great spot for young families, but also people who may be downsizing from other areas in the district. And as I said, this sort of ground-oriented townhouse is something that we have not seen a lot of. And then we will receive a CAC of just over $1.9 million from this project, which could be directed towards affordable housing if we so choose. You know, I hope that we will be able to deliver some affordable housing down in Lionsgate Village with other projects. But I think this is a very supportable project that's been in the works for a number of years, and I'm happy to support it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Back. Councillor Hanson, your comments, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. And let me commence by acknowledging all the hard work that's gone into the project. And I do respect the work of staff and the work of the applicant in pursuing this. I will not, however, be supporting this matter going to first reading. I mean, obviously, we need all types of housing in our community. And obviously, for those who can afford it, 108 units of beautiful strata housing in the Lionsgate neighborhood would be ideal. But from my perspective, we need a broader and more diverse housing mix. Yeah, from my perspective, what's missing in our housing mix in the district isn't 108 units of brand new expensive strata with 181 parking stalls near a busy intersection. What's missing is more affordable housing that's available to a greater range of incomes, and especially rental housing. I do acknowledge that this has 10 units, which is less than 10% of lock-off suites that are going to be 231 to 273 square feet. And I obviously do welcome such lock-off suites as providing greater diversity and greater affordability. But in my view, to only provision 10 such potentially affordable units in the entire unit mix of what will be 118 units, including the lock-off suites, is insufficient. I simply think we should ask for better when it comes to diversity of housing and when it comes to affordable opportunities. None of the 108 units that are going to be included in this project will be affordable by any definition that I can think of affordable, with retail costs in the neighborhood of $1,500 per square foot or even more. Even the smallest units are going to be approaching $1 million, and the larger units could be well on their way to $2 million. As I say, what I believe what our community most urgently needs now is more affordable housing and a more diverse mix, especially of rental housing. I also want to deal with the issue of parking. I do travel through this intersection from time to time, and it's a very busy place. I noticed the staff report emphasizes, and I agree, it's extremely well served by transit, probably the best transit in the district. Is this a place where we should be placing 181 additional cars? I think if you ask people who know the area well, they would suggest that this is not a place where we should be seeking to densify the number of cars. Why can't we consider for areas that are so transit friendly, such as this, projects that have less or no parking requirements that could serve to increase affordability and, as they say, contribute to a more diverse housing mix? going forward, for my part, I look forward to proposals that are more focused on affordable and rental housing, which are more sensitive to the need to avoid adding yet more cars to the busiest portions of our roadway. And while I applaud the applicant for including 10 lock-off suites, I hope to see more of such innovations in strata housing proposals that come forward. From my point of view, we have to do better than what will be 8 or 9% of the units having lock-off suites. We need meaningful contributions to affordability and diversity of housing, from my point of view, for us to be approving the projects. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hanson, Councillor Murray, followed by Councillors Forbes, and I'll make my comments at that point. So Councillor Murray, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I have a question to staff. Where is the option in the report where the density transfer would be removed, but then the remaining project would be forwarded to public hearing? Can you stop my clock? Thank you.
Because it's a past direction of council, staff recommending something that would fly in direct collision with a council decision would be problematic. Have you contemplated
But that
what
was,
would
but
look like?
sorry, Mayor Little, past councils can't tie the hands of future councils.
That's fair, but we have to change that direction by council policy. So Mr. Milburn, do you have additional comments on that?
I think a useful comment at this stage is if council votes that that is the particular condition that is of a concern, a referral back to staff to address that and to reduce the density, to eliminate the density transfer would be an option for council to refer it back to staff if that is council's wish. Just as council could amend the bylaw in any number of other ways, staff would recommend a referral back to staff so we can discuss that with the applicant.
What about at the public hearing, once council hears comments? We couldn't reduce density then.
Your worship, council is technically not able to reduce user density, except council can reduce density with the approval of the applicant after a public hearing. Is the way the statute is written. Again, if there are significant changes after public hearing that necessitate a new hearing, we simply hold a new hearing and council reconsiders those types of changes. But if council wishes to reduce the density, that could be done theoretically after public hearing with the applicant's approval.
So why wasn't there an option brought forward with the extra 4 to 6 units based on the density transfer, because we've never done it before, and with the units included?
Your worship, simply as noted, this was prior staff direction, council direction to staff. Staff was very clear in the report. This is not an obligation on council to support the density transfer. It's entirely within council's discretion. Staff was just providing a recommendation based on past direction of council.
So may
I think because it's an unusual situation that, sorry, Mayor Little.
May I just suggest that if you're unsatisfied with going to first reading because you're uncomfortable with the density that's proposed in it, then the correct way to deal with it is either to vote against the first reading or refer the matter back to staff for additional review before we take the matter to second and third reading. But you'd have to convince the room of that, that direction.
I just think it's a shame that this wasn't flagged initially, and that there wasn't 2 options presented given this very unusual situation that we find ourselves in. I look at the maps that are included in the report, and I am really concerned about the level of density that we're including in this project, but in the overall area with really a very small amount of green space for the 2,000 to 3,000 people that will be living there, probably closer to 5 when it's all built out. There's trails up to Capilano Regional Park, but they're trails, and certainly the increase in the setbacks for the previous development, ebb and flow, was done to create livability for the neighboring properties, and that was a tough battle to get through. So I am really concerned about the overall density and hardscape from a very lush neighborhood in Lower Capilano at one point. There's certainly a significant amount of cement. I'm disappointed that staff feel that there's no other option for use on these 4 to 6 units. I mean, I would just say, make a larger, put a play area within this development for the kids. I mean, we've got probably more 3-bedroom units in this project, than many of the other projects that we've approved. And it would be great if we could have put, a play area, not something that you have to walk to, but something that's just outside your door. I guess the other thing is, the report talks about how, this is within walking distance to local shops. There's very few shops in this area. It's pretty car dependent still. I don't disagree with Councillor Hanson on the number of parking spots. We're encouraging people to bring cars, and it's a landlocked area. It's going to be a very, very challenging place to park in the future because most people bring 2 cars and they expect that they can park on the street with their extra vehicle. So I just, you want to make these places livable and you want to have a level of, treed areas, open space for people. And it just seems that we're really reducing the amounts of open space. I'm watching another development daily being built on Mount Seymour Parkway, and the density at that project, pathways through a project is not green space. Planter boxes with plants are not green space. It's important in these very dense parts of our communities that we have these larger areas for people to go. I mean, we watch, the thousands come over the bridge to recreate in our trails and our forests and our parks because they don't have them within their own developments. And, I would say that we're contributing to that as well. We should be finding a better balance in these town centers to create more opportunities for people to be outside and to recreate and to just, go for a walk in the park rather than down a cement pathway. So if there's interest from other councillors, I suspect not. I think I've heard Councillor Ma indicate that this is a council issue as far as the density transfer. I'll listen to others to see how I'll move forward with that option. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. A lot of the points I was going to make, Councillor Hanson has made. There are some things that concern me about this development. Accessibility, and by accessibility, I'm referring to a couple of things. The inner buildings, I'm wondering about when they want delivery of furniture. How does that work? Because there's no road going in there. So I'm concerned about that kind of accessibility. I'm also concerned about that there's 2 wheelchair entrances to get in. Out of 7, only 2 are accessible. So if somebody's using a wheelchair or a stroller or walker, I'm concerned about that accessibility. And also the design of the area, the whole area, it's not flat. There are stairs. And then I'm concerned about how do people who have mobility issues even manage that on the outside, never mind the inside. So accessibility is a big thing that I'm concerned about because as is said in this report, the idea is that this is also supposed to be available for seniors trying to downsize. So you're going to have people with those types of necessities that I just mentioned. I too think we need more rental, not more strata. We have done a lot of townhouses. We've approved a lot of townhouses and built townhouses in Edgemont. But I still think that the crying need in our district is rental. And I think to kind of say that this provides diverse incomes, diverse housing choices, as opposed to single-family houses next to it. Kind of painting with a very broad brush that I don't really think applies. The other thing that I'm concerned about is that even when the study and the comments were brought back, that the school district advised that the schools that children in this area would go to were already full back then. And other than Handsworth being rebuilt, I'm not aware of any new schools. So already we have a problem if we're trying to, and we've got 2 and 3 bedrooms here. So we're assuming we're going to have children that will move into this building. We didn't have schools back then. What are we going to do now? And what are we going to do in the future when it's built? So I'm concerned about the schools too. And I also am concerned about the amount of cars that are in there. It's becoming a very isolated area down there. We didn't get the commercial units we were supposed to get sort of in the first development. We have a community center there and a few other little things, but it's not really a commercial area, not like when you look at Parkgate or you look at even Lynn Valley. There isn't a real source of commercial activity there. So I think that's pretty much my concern. So I am concerned, as Councillor Murray says, about the density that's planned to go in there, the accessibility, and how sort of landlocked those center buildings are in the center of the development. Thank you.
All right, well, just my own comments on the matter. I'm actually supportive of the recommendation. I think this is in line with what we contemplated in the neighborhood when we came up with the neighborhood plan there. Yes, there is some slight bonusing. I will caution that, when there certainly are times when previous councils don't tie the hands of people in future, but there's no question that we have to respond to the decisions that previous councils have made. And I don't think that developers in our community would respond very kindly to us reneging on previous agreements that we've had in the community. We would lose a lot of that innovation and that could come from those kinds of agreements as we're going through a neighborhood. Rather than trying to master plan the whole space all at once with an agreement, this provides an opportunity for us to still phase it, which is what's happened. And so to take a later phase and use it to sort of punish an earlier phase, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm going to be supportive of this getting first reading. I still have some questions about access pieces, and I think that Councillor Forbes has raised some good questions about accessibility of the units overall. But I do think that we're in the ballpark, and we'll be supportive of us going to first reading. Next, if it's okay with you, Councillor Mott, Councillor Pope hasn't spoken yet, so as a first-time speaker.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have to say that I agree with Councillor Hansen's position on this. I am glad to see there are the 10 lock-off suites, but we have absolutely no guarantee that those will be rented out, and we certainly doubtful that they'll be rented out on any level of affordability. So I would like to see more affordability built into these plans. I think we have a housing crisis. We need to take a stand and ensure that everything we're doing is being done with a view to creating more affordability, because we know that there are so many problems going on the North Shore just because of the affordability issue. So I am not prepared to vote in favor of this. I think that it needs to be tweaked a bit. And one of the ways that could be done is by reducing the parking. I don't quite understand why the applicant did their own parking needs assessment, which determined it only needed 148 vehicles and still went ahead with 181 vehicles. And it's my understanding that, in reducing parking, that can create space for other units, and perhaps those could be the affordable ones. So I would like to see some change and some movement on that. before I see this go to a public hearing.
Thank you very much. So just as we're going to go into the second round of speaking opportunities, I did just want to say the impact of defeating first reading. So defeating first reading means that the application is dead. And so if you're looking for an alternative to go back to staff and discuss some of the elements, then we may want to consider referring the item to staff rather than defeating it first. If you don't think it's in the ballpark at all, then it's entirely your right to decide to deny first. But I think that if it's about negotiation of some of the elements, then I would highly recommend that it be referred back to staff for further discussion. But as a second time, I'm going to go through Councillor Ma, your comments.
Thank you. I know that this project is the third one in the area by this developer. From what I've heard, the other two townhouse projects have been well received. The developer made some minor adjustments based on feedback, I think from the PIM. You know, the additional lock-offs, suites, would I have liked to see more? Of course I would, but 10 is a start. And when you look at the units, up to about 270 square feet, I manage a building downtown, and 270 sort of like our micro suites. So the size is not unreasonable. The units could be more affordable, but you know, I believe we need different forms of housing, such as townhouses, because young families cannot afford to buy a house, and you know, we do want to provide options for seniors if they want to downsize, and knowing that there's other rentals in the area, you know, helps me to support this. The developer has also given some offsite improvements or funding for offsite improvements in CACs. I'm not keen that the density bonusing has already been baked into the proposal. You know, I thought council would still have a chance to look at that separately, but I'm willing to see how this plays out at the public hearing. So I will support the staff's recommendation for this project to go to public hearing. I want to hear what else the community might have to say about this. So I will support it going forward, but if it needs to be referred back, so it's not killed, I will also support that.
Okay. Next speakers, thank you very much, Councillor. The next speakers, I think Councillor Pope, that was from before, or did you want to speak a second time?
I don't think so.
Okay, so then I've got Councillor Hanson and Councillor Murray, and then I'll come back to Councillor Pope after that time. Councillor Hanson,
Yeah,
Councillor
thank you
Murray,
very, thank you very much, Your Worship. In view of your comments, I'd like to bring a motion that it be referred back. More lock-off suites, less parking, and we may have something that we could support at this council table, in my view.
So just want to be clear with the clerk that deferral at first and deferring the matter to, or do we have to specifically refer it to staff for particular comment?
Thank you. What would be in order, Your Worship, is to refer the matter back to staff to incorporate the two components that Councillor Hanson has included, and then that matter will be brought back forward to council at that time.
Debate on referral?
Yes, there is debate on
Very
referral.
much. So referral has been moved by Councillor Hanson. Is there a seconder for referral? Councillor Pope. Discussion on referral. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I think it's part and parcel of the debate that's been before us on the main motion.
Thank you. Councillor Pope is the seconder.
I don't have much to add either. I just would want to support it. I want to see what's possible, and at least we've asked for it.
Thank you. Councillor Murray, do you want to speak on the regular motion or on referral?
Well, I'll speak on referral if we can also look at the issue of density transfer. And I would just, you know, want council to clearly understand that if it goes to public hearing, and Mr. Milburn, you can clarify again, once that public hearing's closed, we cannot reduce the density without the applicant agreeing. Is that not correct?
Mr. Milburn?
That's in the circumstance where council reduces and approves the bylaw. Council can always defeat the bylaw as well. That is an option after public hearing. Or hold a new public hearing with the revision to the density. So council has options, and we can clarify those depending on the scenario that occurs at the time.
Thank you.
And Mayor Little, I heard your words very clearly. And I don't want this to send a message to the development community that we're not standing by our word. I'm not sure if I feel those comments are fair. If you look on page 51 of the report, staff says under the circumstances, the density transfer to the subject site was requested by the applicant and supported by staff. It is important to note that the density transfer resolution only requires staff and council to consider this density transfer in the context of the subject rezoning. It does not obligate council to approve the density transfer. So on the one hand, staff is saying there is a density transfer. It's been included in this overall package. I would have much preferred two options coming forward, one to consider it, one to not, and leave it at that. But it's like, that's not the intent. And I don't think that's the intention is not to, mess with the development community and a commitment that was made by a previous council. And staff is clearly laying that out on page 51 of this report. So, I think, we are not obligated to include this extra density. We removed the density because of the impact of the previous development on the local neighborhood. And, it was a very, very challenging time. So, I think the density, I'd like to see what the options look like and what else. Maybe we take that density and it addresses Councillor Pope and Councillor Hansen's issues. I mean, these units are going to be upwards of $2 million. Missing middle, honestly. We have to start clarifying who we're trying to, achieve housing for. Affordable is a very broad statement. I think we've got to become a little bit clearer on, what we're trying to address here. So I'm happy to refer it back and try to address some of these things. I'm not sure parking, underground parking can achieve, more affordable units. The cost of parking is just passed on to the market, and the market will bear what it will bear. And this neighborhood is very close to West Van, the Lionsgate Bridge in downtown. So it's a very sought after, lucrative community. And so, other than, us, moving into the direction of requiring a different kind of unit, there's not much more. The market will bear what it will bear. So I'm fine with moving it to deferral and trying to address some of these things.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion on referral? Councillor Forbes?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say, besides the comments that Councillor Hansen, Councillor Pope and Councillor Murray have mentioned, if I am in favor of referring, then I'd like my concerns about accessibility and no vacancy in schools. I'd like those things addressed as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Back, additional comments?
Thank you, Mayor Little. I guess I would just like some clarification on the process, because it's not really typical that we would refer application back at first reading. It's not an early input opportunity, which we did try last term of council. So what is the process? How quickly would we see this coming back potentially?
Thank you, Your Worship. The timing will really depend upon the conversations we have with the applicant afterward. The motion, I believe, is for more lock-offs and less parking. So we'd have specific targeted conversations about those topics and, of course, answer broadly the questions that council has raised about other matters. I don't have an idea of the timing, though, until I speak to the applicant about the level of impact that might have on their designs. They may have to revise some designs before it's returned and then the bylaw amended. So it could be a matter of likely many weeks before this matter is returned to council.
Well, I guess my comment would be, I think we can easily ask for more lock-off suites and we can ask for less parking, but this might actually be a significant change to the project, adding significant cost and delay, which ultimately is going to mean that, these homes are going to end up costing more in the long run. But I can appreciate the ask for, to see more lock-off suites. I'm just not sure how feasible that is, but I guess we'll find out.
Mayor Little, I have a point of clarification.
I'm going to go to Councillor Pope first, just
Okay.
because we don't actually give priority for point of clarification. So I'm going to go to Councillor Pope first, and then I'll put you up as the next speaker after that. Councillor Pope, your comments.
Thank you very much. I want to clarify actually what the motion is that's on the table, because I believe the motion that I've seconded is not just about reducing parking and increasing lock-off suites. Its primary focus is affordability. Can you clarify that? Can the clerk clarify that?
The challenge in that is that we've heard comments from several members of council that want to support the referral about parking ratios, affordability, about density transfers, about accessibility, about a great many number of things. And what the challenge we have is to see if there's a consensus forming. And so I think we've given staff lots of directions to come back and make recommendations to the council. But I think if we're trying to do referral for one specific item, that might be a challenge. It's probably better to get the feedback on all of the items that have been raised by the council and see if a consensus forms to move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just want to see the wording affordability in there. I just want to make sure that it's very clear.
Addressed
Yeah, thank you.
in that. Thank you. Councillor Miri, just clarifying comment.
Well, that's the same comment that I had, that Councillor Pope just expressed. Mr. Milburn was very focused on two items that the motion included. And I think we've all gone around and we all have some questions about many things, and we would like those questions answered. So if staff needs this motion to include all of these points in order for them to be addressed, then I'd like that added in. Otherwise, Mayor Little, if it's your direction to staff that they bring back something that encompasses our comments and our concerns, we all have some different ones. I'm fine with that, but I worry that the rest of us will not have our concerns addressed. Mine is the density transfer option.
Thank you, Councillor Miri. So just checking in with the clerk now, are you going to need to seek a friendly amendment, or are we satisfied that staff have the leeway to bring back information about several different options in this process?
Thank you, through your worship. At this time, I believe staff have enough that they can bring back options based on the discussion of council. However, it's at council's pleasure.
Okay, Mr. Milburn, do you need additional direction? You're satisfied that you can answer those questions?
Yes, I think we're satisfied. We've taken diligent notes of all the questions we received tonight and be happy to return that. Again, it's a conversation, so it'll be subject to how the applicant responds to those requests.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ma on referral.
I just want to follow up on Councillor Back's question about process. So the first vote will be on the amendment?
On referral.
On referral. And then if that fails,
then we're back to the original motion, which was moved by Councillor Back, seconded by yourself, or sorry, maybe I have that reversed. Yeah, and then we'd be discussing that without a referral option at that point, unless there's a new referral or a new deferral of some kind at that time. But in front of you at this moment, moved and seconded and in good order, is referral of this item back to staff to get additional feedback on the items identified. Do you have any other questions on referral?
No.
Okay, Councillor Back, I see your hand up. Did you have additional? Okay, so I think we've had a good discussion on this. I'm prepared to support referral myself, and look forward to hearing things. As I had said, I already supported it moving forward because I think it's in keeping generally, but more than happy to have a little bit of time to talk about these areas where we can always improve these projects. So I'm prepared to call the question on referral. All those in favor? Contrary minded? The motion carries with Councillors Ma and Back opposed. And we'll engage with the applicant to sort out those details as quickly as we can. All right, Council, moving on to the next item this evening. This is item 8.2. This is the loan authorization bylaw 8649 security issuing resolution. I'm going to be looking to Mr. Daniluk for initial comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council adopted the loan authorization bylaw for this security issuing resolution last December. It's for the Maplewood Fire and Rescue Center and Argyle Artificial Turf Field. This resolution is for the first 20 million of borrowing with the $27.8 million balance planned for issue in the spring of next year.
So moved.
The issue is required by the Municipal Finance Authority to move forward with the borrowing, and staff are seeking approval of the security issuing resolution.
Thank you very
So
much.
moved, Mayor
Councillor
Little.
Murphy, you're moving the recommendation. Is there a seconder
Yeah.
to the recommendation? Seconded by Councillor Back. Any additional comments, Councillor Murray?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Oh, I just wanted clarity on the process, if I may, Mr. Daniluk. And so we have, in order for us to borrow from the MFA, we need approval from Metro Vancouver for a risk of this size. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that any examples of that being withheld for a project of this nature?
No.
Okay. All right. Councillor Forbes, your comments?
Just for clarification for anyone who may be listening or who hasn't been involved in these conversations before, Mr. Daniluk, could you explain what our allowable debt is and where we're at with how much debt we are currently carrying, and this will add on to that?
Sure.
And how that relates to, if you can, how that relates to the general metro area.
Thank you. Through your worship, Councillor Forbes, the total allowable debt under their community charter is 25% of previous year's revenue. Right now, the way that we measure it is as a percentage of only the property tax revenue. At the end of this year, I believe it was in the range of 4.6%. Total debt outstanding was about 25 million. And including this debt issue and other debt planned over the next 5 years, it would go up to about just over 6% of property tax revenue before declining back to around just below the 5% range in the outer years. In terms of where we are in comparison to others, most municipalities have outstanding debt in the range of 10% or lower, 10% or lower of their overall revenue. And municipalities have been very conservative in my experience, and we're no different in the current range that we're in terms of our debt to revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Daniluk.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ma, additional comments?
Yes, it seems like to me we've made some commitments in previous years, and now we just have to pay for it. I want to commend the finance department for their decision to delay taking out the loan earlier to take advantage of the lower rate. So that was a good decision there, Dan. So, or Rick, sorry.
Thank you very much. And we all hope for a more preferable borrowing condition going forward, but I see no additional comments or questions from staff, so I'm prepared to call a question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, on to item 8.3 this evening. This is the transitional housing for District of North Vancouver residents facing imminent homelessness and those at risk or already unhoused. Councillor Pope, this is your motion, so I'll seek you to move your motion. We'll find a seconder and then we'll have the discussion. So you'll be moving your motion?
I will be moving my motion.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Back. Councillor Pope, your comments, please.
Thank you very much. This motion is in response to the crisis of unhoused people we are facing in the District of North Van. The goal is to build housing fast, within a couple of months to a year, to keep people off the street until we finish building permanent supportive housing, which will take years. We are facing a potential tsunami of unhoused and homeless people on the North Shore. It is the inevitable impact of the housing affordability crisis. Frontline outreach workers are already seeing it because the shelter is consistently full, and so are other options. We have a moral imperative to act fast to help our most vulnerable residents, many of whom will be forced to live on the street in a tent or in an RV or couch surfing in the district. Let me give you a few examples. While visiting the North Shore Family Services recently, staff told me and the group of us from here about a teenage girl who came in with her mom to get a free grad dress. She is in grade 12 at a North Van secondary school, and about to graduate. They live in a car. I have also learned recently that although we have housing for women escaping abusive partners, they're consistently full because those women can't move on after being stabilized because there is nowhere they can afford to go. Disturbingly, that means that right now, women who live in our community are being forced to stay with men who beat them or abuse them or their kids, and it is totally unacceptable. I could go on. 36 people, including seniors, have been evicted from their rooms at the old Travelodge as of July 31st. Tonight, we've also heard from young Zach, who urgently needed a safe place to live. And luckily on that night, there was room at the youth safe house, because there isn't always. I shuddered to think what might have happened if he'd ended up somewhere else. And we heard from the Canadian Mental Health Association, who spend a lot of their time just trying to find homes for people who are already unhoused. Fortunately, the BC government has prioritized housing and providing funding for homes for vulnerable people right here in the district. But those supportive housing units are potentially years away from move-in ready. So we need housing for people until they can get in. Other BC communities have already responded to this crisis, and we can look to them for solutions. For example, the Squamish Nation built 55 modular homes on Capilano Road, and they tell me that they now have a template that could be reproduced in 6 months. And I've lost my place. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Kelowna brought in 60 tiny prefab homes to temporarily house their rising homeless population. The city of Vancouver has all kinds of modular housing. New Westminster and even the small town of Gibsons have responded to this crisis with homes for the vulnerable. I'm almost finished. These communities recognize that all people have the right to live with dignity and some form of decent shelter. And the consequence of not doing so will mean more people on the street, including seniors, including teenagers, increased tent encampments, and yes, desperate people showing up in our parks and neighborhoods. Economically, unhoused people cost all of us more money because, as we heard earlier in the presentations, they get sicker and use hospitals more, plus police resources and the criminal justice system and other social services. So in closing, I feel we must take action on this, and we must do it as quickly as possible. And I hope you'll support my motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I believe seconder was Councillor Back. Do you have additional comments?
Thank you, Mayor Little. Thank you, Councillor Pope, for bringing this motion forward. I am very supportive of it and hope that we will see it move forward tonight. We heard from a range of really excellent speakers tonight at public input who highlighted how devastating homelessness can be for those who experience it. And we know that the housing first way of thinking works. When people have a roof over their head, their chances of seeking a better life are much improved. And it would be a really proud moment in the district for me if we could see this type of transitional housing become a reality. You know, I know that the Lookout Shelter, which we provide support for in the city of North Vancouver, is regularly full. And you know, one of the most proud moments for me in this council is when we approved the supportive housing on East Keith. We know that the need is great, and I think we do have to get very creative in how we go about finding solutions, which does rely upon, looking at different types of housing and the modular housing and tiny homes and some of the things that other municipalities are doing really is innovative and largely is working and changing people's lives for the better. I've had the opportunity to tour a number of modular housing projects, including the one here in the Squamish Nation, which was constructed in a very short period of time. And I think that's the key to this whole motion, is that whatever we bring forward here has to be built quickly. We have a number of great purpose-built projects that are coming online, but they're going to take years. They have taken years in some cases. So we need to be able to help people now. And certainly the people down at the Travel Lodge are top of mind with me. And I know that there's others, as been highlighted in the report. The face of homelessness has changed over the years. It's people that are in many cases working, living in RVs, living in neighborhoods, throughout the entire district. And so I think for us to explore, what more we could do it's incumbent upon us. And I'm glad that Councillor Pope is bringing this motion forward because it puts a focus on a specific type of housing that could help people in the short term. I was very touched by Zach's comments tonight, so I want to again thank you for coming out and speaking to us. It's always refreshing to see young people come to council, but particularly when you have a story as powerful as yours. And if we could change more lives and put them on a positive path like Zach is on, why wouldn't we do that? So just again, I know this is going to be a challenge, but I think it's one that we should embark upon and try to do everything that we can. And I think there is more that we can do. So thank you, Councillor Pope, for bringing it forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beck. Councillor Hanson, your comments?
Yeah, thank you very much. I fully support this motion, directing staff to develop strategies for providing urgently needed housing for those facing homelessness on a time frame of months instead of years. I also support the specific recommendation of this motion to explore all avenues for funding for this urgently needed transitional housing. The challenge of homelessness, as we all know, is only growing worse and worse across our community. This would seem to be true anecdotally all across our province. What we are doing collectively, and I here refer to all levels of government, is simply not working. Our ongoing homeless counts bear this out. The problem here in the district, it's easy for any of us with eyes to see, is only getting worse and not better. For these issues to exist in such a wealthy community as ours, in such a wealthy province as ours, is frankly disgraceful. I support any and all initiatives to address homelessness on an urgent basis. This is the population group. We talk about housing. This is the population group that most urgently needs housing, the completely unhoused. Here as everywhere, we need to work collaboratively with senior government, especially provincial government, to find real solutions. And I do thank Councillor Pope for bringing this forward. And I look forward to carefully studying the staff report detailing how these potential solutions can be implemented here in the district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just my own comments on the matter, and then I see Councillors Murray and Ma. I definitely think that the District of North Vancouver has a role in making sure that we have options of housing in the community and transitional in nature and different sizes and different tenures. Obviously, you've been very supportive of the North Shore Youth Safe House that was referenced at the front of the meeting. I think I was part of the painting party that originally outfitted the place 20 years ago. It's definitely something that is a challenge because if we don't have a role in it, then the province won't put it here. And that's an incredibly important point. The province is going around and buying land and buying buildings in other municipalities. In Vancouver, in Burnaby, in Coquitlam, in New Westminster, in Kelowna, in Penticton. And yet when it comes to the North Shore, they expect us to buy the land and contribute the land. And I find that very unfair. If the province is committed to producing shelter spaces, transitional level 1, level 2 housing in our community, they're going to have to make the same kind of commitment. And I find it very frustrating that they don't come to the table with those additional funds. Even just this last week, we had an announcement that was for, I believe it was for 6 properties that were going to be supported through a Metro Vancouver partnership. And in the other 5, it's Metro-owned land. In the District of North Vancouver one, it's District of North Vancouver-owned land. That's very frustrating that we're not getting the same assistance to support this kind of housing that other municipalities get. In the report itself, and I thank Catherine Pope for bringing this report forward, it specifically says in the middle of page 204, the goal is to provide temporary housing to those in immediate need. However, this type of housing will not be temporary, as it will also be needed by others for years to come. Absolutely. I find that to be a justification for why we should be building permanent rather than temporary. The temporary units that I have seen have been challenging. The Heather site that a number of us went and toured, half of the units had mold issues because the modular units, it's very hard to get high quality dry air into those spaces. And so they had mold issues in those spaces. And so, the pallet homes that I've seen are very good when the coldest your place gets is about -5. But when you have a cold snap at -20, they don't hold up. And so what I think that we have an obligation to do is come up with permanent solutions to identify property in the District of North Vancouver that we acquire through redevelopment or we acquire through some other investment of the council. And then we put it forward permanently for this kind of housing. And I absolutely understand that that means it's going to take more time for those units to come online, but it's permanent. It's going to be that way forever. When you put people in substandard shelter housing, and then you're never going to be able to get to a point where you can put permanent on that site because the need will always be there. You'll have to demo evict. You'll have to move people along. And so I think it is still worth taking the time to identify sites where we can build high quality, permanent, and let the community understand that is a permanent contribution from the community to help address this issue. Absolutely recognize the concerns being raised about that there isn't the stock coming online to help us through the current issues that are happening over the next 6 months and a year. But I have to put that firmly at the feet of the provincial government. The provincial government is, the provincial and federal government take 92 cents of every tax dollar in this country. And for the 8% of the tax dollars that we have to provide police, fire, parks, roads, sewer, waste, all of the other functions that are out there. And the provincial government specifically is tasked with the mandate to address this issue. And so I don't want to be letting the province off the hook of their obligations to be buying these properties and supporting them properly. I'm supportive of the initiative, and that is my comment on the matter. I've got Councillors Murray and Ma, Forbes and Pope. Councillor Murray, your comments, please.
Mr. Milburn, I'm just wondering how much we have in the Affordable Housing Fund, or Mr. Daniluk. I guess I should be asking the finance guy.
Through your worship, Councillor Murray, the balance in the Affordable Housing Fund is in the range of 5 million at the moment. And the majority of those funds are already committed to projects.
What projects?
The assumption is that the agreements that we've entered into will result in additional affordable housing units, and those funds will be used to support those initiatives.
Mr. Milburn, can you give us some specifics that they're applied to?
Just for clarity, so council has committed to covering the application fees, the development cost charges, and extraordinary costs related to offsite works associated with the Hollyburn project, the Sanford project, the West 16th project, East Keith project, and the Metro Vancouver Riverside project as well. So all of those projects need to be financed, and they're covered through the reserves that I've mentioned.
Thank you.
Yeah, that I hear your frustration, Mayor Little, when we're picking up those kinds of costs as well. So I share your frustrations. Mr. Evans said when he spoke that he highlighted the Keith Road project, how it took 4 years to get there. You know, let's not talk about the 16th and Lloyd project. I think part of the problem, and I concur with the mayor's comments in regards to senior levels of governments, you know, dropping the ball on this. And it is getting worse. Thank you, Councillor Pope, for bringing this forward. I tried years ago and 2 councils ago to build some modular housing down in Maplewood to look after the people of Emery, and that failed. There was not support on council for that concept. There was a developer willing to put forward the modular housing to look after the displacement on land they owned, and it was not supported, sadly. So it's, you know, we've tried these things before. But I think part of it, though, is we put forward in the district anyway. We've got to reflect on ourselves and look in the mirror sometimes. You know, Lloyd and 16th is on a floodplain. It's a very complex site. It's challenging. It's not simple to build on. You know, the Metro Vancouver site on Dollarton, same thing, treed, floodplain. It's gonna, you know, we're putting, you know, major costs on the backs of nonprofits, and paying out money that I think we don't need to pay out when we've got some brownfield opportunities to look at. You know, we do have the fire hall that's going to be vacant as soon as we move into the new place. I'm wondering if there can't be some modular put in there short term. We've also got property down on Mountain Highway. It's currently, we've got some houses there. We seem to do better with houses, safe houses. We seem to do well with housing, single family housing that we have in the community. And I'm wondering if, I mean, that would be simple, you know, buy a house with 5 bedrooms and put a mother and a daughter who's living in her car in with another mother and daughter fleeing violence. And there's the solution to your problem. You know, real estate, you know, keeps going up. It's not you're not going to lose money by buying a house and doing what we've done in many other houses in the district, which is, you know, create low income rental or safe houses or whatever. We've got homes for people with disabilities and mental health, etc. We have those homes, and we have for decades. They're there. We don't have to, you know, get the land. We don't have to put utilities in. You know, there's enough furniture on the Facebook Marketplace and furniture that people are wanting to get rid of that we could, you know, certainly furnish it, and we would have to go out to the community for resources of being able to staff it. But I'm sure, you know, organizations like Hollyburn and Family Services would all, you know, come forward and help us out. So we do have solutions. It's, you know, we need money. I thought there was a bit more in that housing fund. I was going to suggest that we just take it and buy some houses, you know, because there is a need. Obviously, there's some clients with far more complex issues, and, you know, we'd have to work harder at trying to find places for them. But sadly, it's not going to be on the North Shore. You know, we're going to have to go out to other communities and see if they've got some vacancy for us as well. So I think that's the kind of out of the box thinking that we need to do, something that's immediate versus, you know, sitting around and looking at another site. And I'll come back. I'll come back. I have an example to give you. I'll come back.
Thank you. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. Having worked at BC Housing for 6 years, I know that municipalities, BC Housing, and senior levels of government have been working for years on trying to address the acute homelessness crisis. In reference to Mayor Little's comment, part of my job at BC Housing was going around the province and buying up hotels and properties. So I know the challenges firsthand. In terms of the situation at Travelodge, I also know that they've been looking for a solution way before Christmas. They just haven't found anything that they can move forward on. The provincial government, through BC Housing, had launched 4 major funding programs back in 2018. That's 6 years ago. They have made some progress. It was under the Building BC initiative. One of those programs was the Supportive Housing Fund that represents an investment of $1.2 billion over 10 years to deliver an additional 2,500 new homes with
24/7 support services for people who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. So there are programs out there that the government's working on. They do recognize the need. Is that enough? No, we can always do more. I appreciate the desire to move faster, especially in our current dire housing situation. I just want to point out that a lot has already been happening on many fronts, including the new housing legislation, a housing supply legislation by the province. I note in the report that asked for staff to report back by mid-June. I would say our staff are hardworking and dedicated, but that doesn't give them a lot of time. We have also tasked them with aligning our bylaws to support the new Provincial Housing Supply Act, especially Bill 44 and 47. They're on a very tight timeline to achieve that by the end of June. I know firsthand that unhoused people are currently in extremely challenging conditions. As part of my day job, I'm a manager for a nonprofit housing provider in Vancouver. My current housing project is in the downtown east side. As one of the speakers said tonight, it's a complex problem and we need to have a comprehensive solution that the community will support. I will vote for this motion and hope that Dan Milburn's team is able to turn or find a stone that hasn't been turned over yet and develop a solution that will work now and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Councillor Forbes, Pope, and Murray. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Worship. I have some comments, I guess, but in general, I mean, nobody's against housing the homeless or people who are at risk of homelessness. Nobody's against that. It's trying to get all the pieces together and get the people who hold those pieces to move. And the down on 16th, that project's been hung up, not by us. We passed it years ago. It's being held up by BC Housing. So Delbrook was another example of a delay. We changed we defeated the first development that came to us, but then we approved it and it sat there and got delayed again by other government bodies, not by the district. So I guess what I want to say is I want to concur with you that housing is a provincial responsibility, and the amount of things that have been downloaded to the district or municipalities to try and take on is stretching we just don't have pockets as deep as them, and we have needs, but they need to come to the table. And I feel the same way as you. It just gets me irate when I see these announcements and they're buying up land and they're doing this in all these other municipalities, and the North Shore is always short. We provide the land and it still takes some years to do anything with it. So that's sort of that pitch. But a couple of other comments I'd just like to make are some of the examples, and thank you for the report, Councillor Pope. It's always something that we should try and find more housing and house those people in need. You need partners to do it. We can't do the whole thing on our own. So there's usually that involves whoever the land, if you can get it from the municipality, and then you have a nonprofit, and then you have a funding source. And those are the three parts that are in there. And some of the examples that were given in the report, they're all kind of built in one, like the development on the Squamish land is developed by a Squamish Nation business. And the funding comes from the Squamish Nation, and it's on the Squamish Nation land. So those things all lined up really good for that. It doesn't quite work the same way, or at least it hasn't up till now for the district. We need partners. We can't do it all. And another example is the travel lodge. I just ache for those people that are in the travel lodge. The provincial government knew when that lease was up. And I don't know if the people have been given the option to, maybe we can't do it in North Van right now. We don't have the opportunity, but I don't know if those people have been offered an opportunity in another municipality. I'd really like to know, when people are desperate for housing, we shouldn't restrict them just to their own area. We should definitely try to keep them in their own area because that's their support system area. But I don't know if the government offered outside of the district area. Again, I was also going to mention the timing, as Councillor Ma has mentioned, that staff are really pressed for time and deadlines of June 30th. So I don't really like that deadline in the motion, but that would be up to staff. And I just want to say, we need this housing desperately, but we need partners and we need the provincial government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor, sorry, I think I had Pope then Murray. Councillor Pope. Okay, Councillor Murray, are you prepared to comment?
Oh, I was just going to say that the example in the modular housing development in New West, it took nearly 2.5 years to put in modular housing up. Their timeline on their development process is part of the link, and so even the best laid plans would take 2 years. I mean, it is crazy. I think maybe it might be interesting to find out how many empty units based on that are waiting for development applications are available in the region. That would be interesting because there's a number of developers that would own property or hold it. Those units may be empty. We've had projects sit empty, old development sites sit empty for a number of years on specific sites throughout the municipality. So, what empty units are waiting for redevelopment when people move out or they find other accommodation. Often those units will not be rented anymore because they don't want to deal with the rental tenant relocation policy. So those units just sit empty. So don't think when you're driving by an old rental that they're filled with people. They may not be. So that might be something. It would be interesting to see if the province could sit down with the development community and say, what do you have available? But I go back to, Councillor Pope, I feel your desperation in trying to deal with this. I've had that feeling certainly over the years and sitting on this council, and it's the council that will raise their hand in favor of moving ahead with options that are outside of the box and give that firm direction, even though I agree with everything that's been said around this table. Desperate times need desperate moves. And I think the single family house has been a solution for many organizations and people in our community. And I think maybe it's something we should consider.
Councillor Murray. Councillor Pope, you prepared to comment?
Yes, thank you. So I'm hearing that some around the table feel that this is a provincial and federal responsibility, and maybe it is, but the problem is we have all these people about to become homeless today, tomorrow, a month from now, and 6 months from now. It's a huge problem and it needs to be dealt with, and we have the ability to deal with it. Plus, we're not doing this on our own. We can get funding from the province, and even the federal government has stepped up recently to say that they are assessing all their lands. They'll have a full list by September of what federal properties could be used by municipalities for various types of affordable housing. I had this confirmed by MP Wilkinson's office today. And of course, there was the mention of the post office land as well previously. So these are all possibilities. And we just needed to open our eyes to these possibilities. And the one other thing I wanted to mention is, Mr. Mayor, on your comment on how these would be substandard housing, well, that's simply not true. The quality of the materials that's used today can last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's not whatever you saw in the past. And that is why all these other municipalities are dealing with this problem, and they are using those materials. And so far, it's very successful. And I commend those other communities for actually responding to the homeless crisis in their municipalities. And that's, I think, all I have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Forbes, do you have additional comments?
Just a couple of quick ones. Announcements are great, but actually getting the money and the funding and the help is what we need. So talking about responsibilities besides our own that belong in those two camps, there's nothing wrong with talking about that. And as I said, everybody or nobody at this council anyway is against getting housing ASAP for homeless, for those in need, for lower middle income affordable. We've been, the last council in this council term I've been on, that's all we've been dealing with mainly, is trying to get that housing. So it still doesn't, announcements are lovely, but actually doing something in our municipality would mean a lot more and would get us the results and would get us the housing that we need. And for some reason, we seem to be being ignored. And also, the one other thing I'd like to say is, when budget time comes around, we talk about we have to live within our means. And if we want to have a District of North Vancouver Housing Authority, then that's what we need to try and set up. That's what we should go to referendum. That's what we should ask the public, if that's what they want their tax dollars to go into to help. Then there's that avenue as well. But one person's one party's responsibility doesn't negate the other parties that should be responsible as well. And if we could all come together at the same time, we'd get forward a lot faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Councillor Ma, additional comments?
This from experience, things go slow at municipal levels, and rightly or wrongly, when I was at BC Housing, the district didn't have a great reputation of moving forward. I believe we've changed that a bit in the last couple of years. There are programs out there, and I know we're trying to work with different levels of government, different funding sources, but it takes time. I know that's not what some people around the table want to hear, but it takes time. There are quick solutions. We just have to work with our partners, be fiscally responsible too, because that's a big issue right now in the district. We also need to give our staff time to do their work. We've tasked them with working on getting bylaws to align with the Housing Supply Act. And sometimes we have these other projects come up and this diverts their efforts. So we need to give them clear direction on what our priorities are. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Ma. Councillor Beck?
Thank you, Mayor Little. Just to say that there is obviously a sense of urgency to this. I know in the report, it says that staff are directed to report back potentially before mid-June, recognizing that's just a few weeks away. I mean, I'm hoping there's some flexibility. I know there's not a lot of time here, but if that was, another couple of weeks or a few weeks, hopefully that would give staff the time they need to be able to report back. But I'm hearing that there is will around the table to see this move forward, and that we're going to try something innovative here potentially. So again, thanks very much to Councillor Pope for bringing this forward, and I'm happy to again reinforce my support.
Thank you. I see no additional speakers. I don't know, Mr. Milburn, can you maybe add some comment to what Councillor Bax just raised about how much time it's going to take to report back? Obviously, the complexity of the response is going to determine how much time you spend on it, but
thank you, Worship. The referral appears to be essentially directing staff to engage in a conversation with the provincial and federal governments about opportunities for partnerships, funding, lands, And we've heard the conversation tonight, understand the priority. So we would immediately reach out to those agencies and our contacts of those agencies to receive response. The response timeline, though, of course, is based on what we hear back from those organizations. So I can't confirm that it would be a day or if it would be a number of weeks. Based on past experience, these conversations, it can take some time, especially if the funding source is related to a future call for proposals. The province then identifies that, and we would provide that information to council about what the timing issues are associated with those conversations around partnership and funding and lands. But we can certainly immediately start the exploration if that's council's wish.
Thank you. Councillor Back, your comments complete? Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Forbes, have you already spoken a second time? Okay. Okay, I'm prepared to call the question on the motion. All those in favor, contrary minded, motion carries. Thank you very much, Council. Council, we've completed the business of this evening's meeting. We still have additional time available to us to cover some reports. I did just want to start off by saying that the District of West Vancouver had an announcement today about a council meeting they had this morning where they dedicated 1,900 acres of land to park forever going forward in the community. This is on the Uplands area, so think above the road to Cypress. And it's an incredible dedication of land to park purposes, and one that I think our community will enjoy for generations to come. And I was immediately asked the question, what can the district do to match? And we've actually already done it. We've already committed our upper lands, including from Mountain to PRO, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space, or dedicated park throughout that area. There is still some privately held land, but the privately held land is already PRO as well. And so there's the only other additional space that we probably could sit and negotiate with the federal government on would have to be the CMHC owned lands of Coven Mountain Forest. Other than that, the entire upper lands across the North Shore would be committed to park directly as dedicated or PRO as zoned throughout the entire area. And so, you know, maybe that's where we focus the discussion, but it is a very noteworthy, it is twice the size of Stanley Park. So it is a massive dedication of land. And so I just wanted to pass along my congratulations to the West Vancouver Council for coming to that decision for the public's benefit going forward. I did also want to mention we did have a scary incident in our community the other day in the Deep Cove area, and it's an area that's a very low crime safe area, and so people were quite shocked to hear that such a dramatic event unfolded. I did just want to say that I want to commend the RCMP for a very quick response to that area, but also just amazing bystander stepped in and provided refuge to the motorcyclist that was being attacked into their car, closed the doors, and the attack continued against the car. And so had the person not given that kind of refuge, we could have been staring at a very much more serious incident. So I don't know the name and identity of that bystander at this time, but I did just want to pass along from our community our high regard for their quick thinking in that moment to provide refuge to that person. Councillor Back, you have additional reports?
Thank you, Mayor Little. I just wanted to comment on a couple of recent one meeting and one event. Last week, Thursday, we had a meeting that was put together by Dr. Alex Choi, our medical health officer, and I also want to thank Councillor Hanson as chair of the Standing Committee on Substance Use. That was about the toxic drug crisis as it affects us here on the North Shore, and it was a gathering of leaders from across the North Shore. There were some very powerful stats that were shown, and I was most impacted by one of the keynote speakers, Guy Felicella, who talked about his battles from many years of living on the street to where he is today, which is, you know, inspiring others and encouraging leaders to do more and do what they can to deal with this crisis, which is in our community and like so many others. So I thought that was a great meeting, and again, just want to thank the organizers of that. Earlier in the week, I also wanted to thank Councillor Pope, who attended with me the North Shore Triathlon, the 34th running of the North Shore Triathlon. So it's been running for a very long time in the Seymour. This year had over 600 participants, including some youngsters as young as 6 years old doing some of them were doing their, 7-year-olds doing their second triathlon already. So it was a great event that was well attended. And I want to thank all of the volunteers as well who come back year after year. And it's gotten more challenging to hold this event. I know the organizers have had challenges with the increased traffic since the event started 34 years ago, but they continue to make it work, and the district supports it as well. So I want to thank Paul Pakaluk and a number of our operations team who support that event every year. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beck. Councillor Pope, additional report.
Thank you. I want to mention that on Thursday, I attended as acting mayor the 16th anniversary of the Hollyburn Youth Safe House, which is actually where I met Zach. And thank you again for speaking tonight. We heard his speech at that event as well. And of course, the Youth Safe House is extremely valuable to this community and needing to expand for sure, because they often do have to turn people away. So it was a real pleasure to be there and meet some of the hardworking volunteers who help out, as well as many of the people on the front lines at Hollyburn who work so hard to make a difference in youth's lives. And that's about it.
Thank you very much. Additional reports? Should probably also highlight that I attended the Blue Ridge Community Association Annual General Meeting with Councillors Ma and Hanson, and we fended off a lot of questions. It was a great event, well run by Eric Anderson and his group, and it's just such an engaged community. One thing I'm always super impressed with that community association about is that they produce the newsletter and they walk it and hand deliver it throughout the community. And I think it's just such a great way to communicate with the neighborhood. I did also want to mention that there was a very important federal announcement that took place in the District of North Vancouver last week. There's a $337 million commitment to developing hydrogen. And the new company here, H-Tech, which is going to be converting waste hydrogen into a fuel cell product, is one of the sites that they're going to be supporting with that loan of $337 million. And hopefully that will produce a carbon-free alternative for heavy truck and potentially in future train and ship as well. And so while it could offset about 30,000 cars worth of with fuel, its actual real higher value is when you take heavy truck traffic and you provide them with a carbon-free alternative. And so that's an exciting project taking place here in our community. Councillor Murray, do you have an additional report?
I was just going to add that Councillor Ma and I both attended the Deep Cove Yacht Club Sail Past 2 weeks ago. I don't think we've had a meeting since then. And so that's been an event that's been going on for years. And I was remiss in thanking Councillor Pope for inviting Zach. Zach, you're an inspiration and rock star, and you're going to go far, my friend. You've got a will of steel, and your stories, although challenging, is an inspiration to many of us. So thanks for coming out.
Thank you very much. Additional reports? Okay. Thank you very much, Council, for your participation this evening. Thank you to staff for preparing reports for consideration. I want to wish everybody a fantastic week. Good night. And I'll accept adjournment. Accepted. All right, there you go.